Welcome back, guys. That's right, we're here with another episode of The Power. And what? I'm flying solo? Where's Steve gone, you ask? Well, he's not abandoned the YouTube game just yet. He's off in North America, Sasquatch hunting as the Bigfoot enthusiast that he is. A little bit weird if you ask me. But anyway, we're here with episode 7 of The Power, titled Baptism. Now, this show was so strange for me. Obviously, I've not got the book knowledge that Steve has, but we're going to break some of the details down for you. So spoilers ahead for anything Power related. Usually we only get 2 characters, maybe 3 characters at a push with different stories. Here I felt like we had so many different story arcs going on at the same time. You know what? Why not break it down character by character? So I'm going to hit you first, Roxy. So yes, British girl is back and I absolutely love this. She has been one of my fan favourite characters throughout the whole series. Obviously, in this one, she is getting a bit of a better grasp at her power. She's starting to teach some underlings in the streets, charging them, obviously, £20 a go. But she's teaching them how to use. She's kind of enjoying this new power in a way. And she obviously tags along in one of these scenes, and she goes with the dad, or goes with the brothers, sorry. And they go to this guy's house, and they're just doing their normal business, trying to get this guy to pay up. And she notices someone familiar across the pool. And obviously, this is a power move for her now. She walks all the way across to him and basically threatens him. Some woman tries to come up to her and she shocks her. And that's it. She's gone. And then a little conversation between the guy in the pool. Roxy's saying, you need to pay up. You need to pay up. He obviously refuses. And then she gives him a shock in a pool. And all of a sudden, the guy shit himself, floating upside down in a pool, almost probably unconscious. Now that, for me, was absolutely baffling. And no one seemed to know it was her. They were all too busy worrying that he's just messed up the whole pool. But you know, it was a brilliant scene, and I think that gave Roxy a real taste of her power and the potential that she's got coming towards her, so to speak. And obviously, towards the end of her kind of story arc, she's obviously been teaching these children in the streets, and somehow she's getting a more successful YouTube channel than me and Steve have. But she uploads some videos, and then, lo and behold, Joss is watching those videos. So I'm going to flip straight in to Joss and how she handles these. So obviously, she's obviously still struggling with the guy who set himself on fire at that press conference the other day with Margot, and obviously she struggles with that, and a few people in school have noticed she's got security with her now, which obviously usher this one guy away. And she's really struggling, obviously, to find out the news about her boyfriend being intersex and essentially being a man with power. She's struggling with that and the breakup that they had. And obviously, they reunite. He comes outside with some lights them up on his own, which then Joss's brother, who is an Urban Docs absolute fanatic, starts recording them. Now, I think there's something to watch there. Now, again, Steve would probably be chirping some book knowledge at me here, but I don't know. But I reckon there's something to that. Is he going to upload that and ruin the relationship that Joss and her boyfriend have? Or is it going to affect the political career of Margot? I don't 100% know. Or is he not going to do it? Is he going to have a heart? I don't know. I'm struggling to toy with that. It was only a short, brief scene. So I don't quite know what he's going to do. But anyway, he's lighting up this electric, these little fairy lights and a little love heart, and she goes out to him. And obviously she's been practicing through Roxy's videos. So she's learning to control her powers a little bit better. And then she explodes them, and they all go off, and it's kind of like a very, a heartwarming moment. But that was kind of it with her. So it was kind of the least favourite of the episode. I didn't quite know where it was going, but I suppose it was that tying in with the title of the baptism. It was kind of making her discover her powers in it, and I think this whole episode is about discovery in a sense. Right, we're going to talk about Eve for a moment, who otherwise known as Ali, but obviously she's masquerading as Eve. Now, there's some interesting facts with this one, I think. Obviously, people are the girls around her, even some of the nuns, are believing that she is some kind of higher power, someone to pray to, a god almost, and that's through the voice that she hears inside her head. Now, there's a couple of things. There was one moment I noticed where she was listening to the voice, and the voice was talking her through it and saying, listen, You've got this. You can do this. Just show them. Give them something to believe in. I think the words that she used. And then we get this next scene with Eve where she's sitting on a sofa and she's kind of stroking this huge snake. And for a moment, she was enjoying it. And it kind of got me thinking, the whole Adam and Eve story where the devil comes over, in disguise as a snake, of course, and tempts Eve into eating from the tree of knowledge, and that's almost kind of a temptation to give in to her sins in a sense. And I think that the way that Eve looked when she was stroking that snake, she enjoyed. I don't know. Did she enjoy the temptation of her sins? Was the purity being taken from her? I don't know. There's something that I think a hidden message in there that makes me not want to trust Eve at all. Obviously, she's discovering this power through a voice that she can hear in her head that she believes is God, essentially. But yeah, it was just that snake scene, and you know what I mean. For me, my belief is that again, from the Adam and Eve story, that the snake is the devil. So if she's enjoying petting this devil, then she's obviously a bad guy. So watch this space. But anyway, things get a little bit weird then, because she goes off afterwards and she just saves someone's life, and thankfully she gets to see a kid again. They all go into the ocean and they're all having a little moment, and I suppose this is where the title gets its name from, the baptism. They're all baptizing themselves to kind of worship Eve as the number one, because she then controls the electricity and through the currents makes them all lie down flat in the water, which is a little bit scary if you admit that's the sign of evil there. But she does that and they all go back, and then she lies back as well, and they all share a moment which one half of the people are thinking this is great, and the people like me are thinking that's a bit terrifying. I don't know what quite to think about that. But anyway, things get even weirder, see where I'm going with this, when we visit Tunde and his story. Tunde is a journalist, obviously, and he's travelled all the way to Romania to try and speak with Zoya, which is Tatiana's sister. And obviously they're now living it up somewhere, not letting males inside. They're kind of running I suppose they're running that part of the country and almost becoming an empire in themselves, really, and untouchable in a sense. But then anyway, Tunde gets there and he's meeting with all these girls who like him. They decide not to kill him, and Zoya's in the middle of giving birth. Now, yes, I know if Steve was here, he would have already mentioned that I predicted Zoya to have the first baby boy born with powers. It is not a baby boy, and an absolute graphic scene of her crowning, essentially, paved the way for that theory to be wrong. I mean, I don't know what to think about that scene. No, me as a man, I don't, I'm not comfortable watching something like that happen. I get it's natural. I 100% agree with it. There's nothing wrong with it. But I don't know. I feel like that from the series, from all the other 6 episodes, the kind of the visuals and the mature content has not been anywhere near that level. It's like it's just suddenly jumped. And I found that a little bit shocking. And then obviously she gives birth to a little girl. Congratulations. But obviously that's just ruined my theory wrong. And yes, Steve somewhere is absolutely loving life right now that I was wrong. Yes, Steve, I was wrong. I've admitted it. But who cares? Let's move on. So she just wants she agrees essentially to Tunde's story and says, yep, I'll do this, but you need Tatiana, and I want to talk to her first. So that brings us to Tatiana, where things just get a whole lot more weird. She is crazy. She gets tagged, so her greedy political husband can monitor if she has power or not. And then we move into the woman, her maid who gave her the power in the last episode. They now swap lives, they swap outfits, and they pretend to be each other. And then this leads to some weird, are they having sex or are they not having sex scene? I wasn't really sure. I was still trying to traumatise from the whole crowning situation, if I'm honest. So, I don't know what happened with that story. But the whole episode, I suppose, gave me an indication. Like we've watched all these characters now. Roxy, Joss, Eve, obviously not Tunde, but Zoya and Tatiana, they're all getting their powers. They're all coming to terms with who they are and what they want to do for the world. And now it's kind of even the tables a bit.
So guys, it's Future Steve here. I'm back from Sasquatch hunting. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything, but I have got those sweet book changes for you. Let's get into it. We're thrown back into Roxy, and now she's starting to finally teach other girls how to use the power. Now, I've mentioned this in the previous episodes, how actually it was her dad's idea to get the girls together and group them up and start to create these gangs of girls who now have the power. So I'm a little bit let down that like I said before with Roxy's dad, I seem to have made the character much worse than he's in the book, and Roxy actually really likes her dad in the book, but I really like the fact that they got to doing all the training for money. I thought that was really good. And then during Roxy's story, we finally meet Primrose. Now, I've mentioned Primrose in the past as the guy that Roxy originally first kills, so seeing him pop up here is a little bit weird for me. And the tussle she's having with her brothers about how he's saying I'm the boss and you're not the boss, that doesn't really happen in the book. Again, they've kind of made all male characters in this really bad, when actually her brothers quite like her in the book and she's part of the team almost. The scene with her in the swimming pool, what a fantastic scene, I must say, first of all. And that scene happens much later in the book, actually. So it's a little bit weird that they've done it now and not later, but I'm hoping that we get that scene again and we see a little bit more detail next time, and we see a little bit more ferociousness of Roxy, and we see how she can actually handle the power much better. Then we move on to Eve or Ali, whichever one you want to use here, and we see her baptism scene. Now, in the book, the whole thing when she's in the water, controlling people's movements, is much more sophisticated is the word I'd use. The voice is telling her, just control them, make them use their, and she basically says, it's not that they think there's a fish touching their feet. She almost makes their legs move, a bit like how it was mentioned at the start with the eels, how the eels could make things move. Yeah, she does that in the book. And then when it comes to finally creating the baptism in the water, I think she actually does it one by one to start with, and she basically electrocutes them, makes them fold in, like an old school baptism where the head would go under and come back up. Not this floating malarkey they seem to have done here. So I'm not sure why they've gone for that approach, but they have. But basically, I think what's lacking in the TV series with this is you could see the electricity, right? You could see the fact that she was controlling them, whereas in the book, it's more mysterious. They don't know what's done it, and they almost feel like it is the force of God rebaptizing them. Whereas with this, you could see it, and I think that kind of makes the scene less powerful than it did in the book. So I'm not happy with that. I mean, at least we're getting there now, but yeah, I'm a little bit unhappy with that part. And then finally wrapping it up with Tunde, and he's now in Capella, or Moldova as it's called in the book. I'm not sure why they had to change that name, but they did. And we get a little glimpse of him with another bloke, and the other bloke saying, I'm about to interview the president. Whereas actually it's Tunde that interviews the president and finally meets Tatiana. Whereas it looks like with the TV series now, we're getting this spin where he meets Tatiana's sister first, and that's the only reason he then gets to speak to Tatiana. Not because actually he is the one conducting the interview with the president. So again, Tunde's character's still been up and down for me, but I think they're finally starting to settle it, and I really like the way they did the approach they took in this one, where you can start to see now Tunde's really outpowered and outmanned, and he's kind of just along for the ride now. But I'm looking forward to his final meeting with Tatiana. That should be good. And then finally, with the book stuff this week, I don't know where we are in the book anymore. We've gone forward, we've gone backwards. I'm not quite sure why they're doing this, but I don't think we're going to be finishing the book this season. I think we're looking for a season 2 to finish the book, as parts of things that have happened are towards the end, but really in terms of where the overall story has progressed, we're probably still in the first third. Not much time has happened here in the TV series. It's only been 6 months, whereas as I've mentioned before, the book spans 10 years. So I'm not sure how they've tried to condense it, but I think if we're going to finish the book, we'll need a season 2. Anyway, I'll hand you back over to Ben and catch you next week for something new.
My predictions going forward, obviously not a baby boy anymore. It's going to be Roxy is the true saviour. She's learning how to control her powers. Yes, she's doing it for bad at the moment, but she doesn't want to end up bad like her father. She doesn't want to end up that criminal of some seedy underworld. But then Eve, who everyone's going to worship to, I reckon it's going to be like one of those things where, some kind of cult where people think she's doing great, but actually she's not. She's doing the wrong thing. I don't know. Again, I don't have Steve here to give me the book facts, but that's my predictions for you. And you know what? I'm going to leave it there. I think I've talked your head off for long enough. Flying solo is hard, but you know what? Let me know your thoughts on what character you prefer, and we'll catch you next week with something new.